Hello and welcome to the Style Stories podcast with me, your host, personal stylist Lisa Gilby. This is a podcast that discusses style, image, fashion, and confidence. And today I am delighted to welcome Kate Stirling, who is a mindset and confidence coach from London. And we're going to be talking about self-image today and how people hold themselves back with their style, but in life in general. So welcome, Kate. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much, Lisa. I'm really privileged to be here. Thank you.
I'm excited for our chat today because I know Kate, I know Kate personally, and I'm going to get her to do a bit of an intro and just tell you guys her background. Kate, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. And it's really funny because I'm like having to bite my tongue because I'm so excited to be here and to be doing this with you. As Lisa's just referenced, I've known Lisa for many, many years. I'm Kate. I am an actor and a mindset and confidence coach. But I have this huge background in coaching from 23 years experience across health and fitness, which is how I know Lisa, from pushing her out in the training field to now into this new sphere of me and my own journey and of kind of self-expression, I guess. And it's why this conversation today, I'm so looking forward to it because it's been a journey that I've very personally been on. I'm very open about it, but alongside my work as a confidence and mindset coach and a life coach, I have a huge passion for being honest about the challenges that I've experienced in my own, whether it's body image challenges. I had an eating disorder as a teenager, so overcoming those, and then also through that sense of, like you were saying, Lisa, really owning our own identity and being confident in ourselves and figuring out who that actually is a lot of the time.
Yeah, and evolving, having different versions of yourself as well. Because I mean, the reason I wanted to chat to you today was to talk about this, but because I talk a lot about confidence as well on the podcast. It's not just about clothes. There's a lot more to it. It runs deep, and actually people hold themselves back in life and they beige themselves down with what they wear because on some level they feel like they don't deserve to look good. And I like to delve into that and explore it because it's, I want to tell people that clothes and looking good and treating yourself and all those things, they're a good thing. It's self-care. It's something that really is part of one of the joyful parts of life as well. I just wanted to do a quote to kick off our chat today that I read on your Instagram, which really spurred me to get in touch to get you to come on the podcast. So it was a post that you did that started off saying, "Do not underestimate the impact of the relationship you have with your body and how you show up in the world as a result." So I'd like to just ask you what you mean by that. What sparked that? And, could you explain it a bit?
I will try and keep it succinct so this doesn't end up being like a 2-hour answer because it's so, like you
Yeah.
say, it's so nuanced and it is so linked to our identity and who we think we are and that connection to our physical self. And, my background is, as I said, came from very much from the fitness and yoga and nutrition and that kind of, but from a very holistic connection with the mind, body, soul, spirit kind of world that we exist in, depending on our own unique experiences and belief systems and everything like that. And I think for me, this whole connection with how we feel in our body is so impactful in everything. So if we don't feel confident in ourselves, we're probably not going to put ourselves out there in a way that would really have us be seen or be heard or even kind of succeed, in inverted commas, in the areas that we really want to kind of succeed in, because deep down subconsciously we might have beliefs about ourselves that we aren't deserving of certain things, or that it's, like you were kind of touching on there, frivolous or vain to worry or to spend that time and that care and that money on our clothing or how we look. And these things from that very deeper kind of mindset or thought-based processes then impacts how we show up, how we dress, how we eat, how we move, how we sleep, how we have that relationship with ourselves. And that link with self-esteem and self-belief and confidence, which is kind of the end product of all of this really, is whether it kind of has that impact on whether you have a good day or not. Sometimes, when you have I work with a lot of mums and the whole thing of, well, who are you and who do you want to be, and the self-judgment, and having become a mum myself in the last 2.5 years, really recognizing how easy it is as well for women to get lost in this like noise of what we should be or who we, like the vanity piece and the judgment piece that can come in and actually really self-censor who we are at our core. And actually, this is about saying, well, who do you want to be without the restrictions that we might have experienced growing up in terms of what women should look like, what our bodies should look like. And also, like you were saying, that kind of sense of actually clothing is a way of being creatively expressive. And how do you kind of separate all those pieces to make choices that you want to make, not what everyone else is telling you should do, but what you really want to do, and what you really want to see when you open your wardrobe, and how you want to feel in your clothes, and how that's going to impact how you walk out into the world. And it's all so connected.
Is it about sort of shedding the imposter syndrome, I guess? It's about kind of, just giving yourself permission to be yourself and accepting that. I mean, personally, I feel more accepting and I care less as I get older. It's
Yeah.
just one of the joys of getting older. I was a bit of a mess, I would say, in my 20s. When I look
Mm,
back, I was like a quivering wreck, like most of the time. I
mm,
had no self-esteem, and it's terrible. And obviously, in your 20s, you're gorgeous and young, and you've got everything laid out ahead of you. You should be all full of confidence and
mm.
all of that. And it's actually the opposite is true, because you're sort of like a bit of a you know I've got a newborn Bambi in my head, which is really random. But
Figuring out how
you
to
know
walk
that
again.
y- yeah, exactly. You're sort of like that, aren't you? Like sort of like wondering about not knowing what's going on because you haven't grown into yourself.
I think that's
Would
exactly
you
it.
say
And
that?
yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I think this whole concept as well of, we look back now. I look back even 2 or 3 years ago and I'm like, oh my God, I actually looked a lot better than what I thought I did. And, this whole idea that we're never quite happy because we're always wanting to be like someone else, or, growing up in the 90s, or the 80s, like I did, it was in that kind of heightened era of celebrity and very specific body types. And so if you don't associate
Oh,
yourself with certain body types as well, then you always feel like you're not worthy of something. And that fed a lot into, again, I'm very open about it, but I had anorexia as a teenager. And so this whole journey then of self-acceptance, like you say, and how you feel in your body, but also how you think about yourself, and the perception that you have of yourself, and the thoughts that you have about yourself, and how actually, if you're living in a very noisy world in your mind as well, how can you live freely to make choices that aren't stressing you out? Because if you've got a constant thought in your head that says, well, you can't wear that because you're going to look stupid, or look at your reflection, and we label ourselves with all sorts of horrible words and things like that, it stops us from truly making those choices that we want to make, without it actually being something that we end up doing what everyone else wants us to be like. And this whole sense of,
oh,
if we don't feel confident in our bodies, and if we don't feel comfortable, it's not necessarily even about loving ourselves necessarily at times, because obviously there are days where we might feel a bit more challenged about who we are and what we feel and think about ourselves. But it's that ability to say, right, well, okay, but I still accept myself in those moments, and I still will embrace her and get to know her better and really figure out who that is. Because sometimes we end up being molded into someone or something that we're not, based on our environments or the relationships that we're in or the things that we hear and we listen to. And it's that sense of, well, what am I going to keep listening to and taking on? And what will I just hear and say, actually, that's not true? And so that whole post that I had put on Instagram was really about this sense of, yeah, really owning yourself and like opening yourself to being seen, like whatever that means for the concept of it, for whoever, for your listeners, that will mean different things for all of us. For me, the concept of being seen is that you can walk into a room and be there without having to over fidget or over stress, or having to kind of get so stressed about walking into that environment, because you have that peace and that sense of acceptance in yourself, because you're not trying to be like anyone else anymore. And that is when you have that confidence in yourself to put yourself out there into new work roles, or to speak up in a meeting, or because you're going to have that attention drawn up into you. And it's that sense of saying, okay, well, I can then hold that without the stress and anxiety and the adrenaline that can come as a result. And that's what that whole post was about, was, if we don't have that, then we are showing up differently in the world. We're not able to fully go out there and achieve our full potential because we're holding back. we're censoring. We're saying, okay, well, I need to be like this person because that's what I've been told I should be, rather than being like, actually, I've got these really deep desires to go out there, and whether it's, you know, talking about clothing, really change my wardrobe. But I'm not allowing myself because I don't see myself as that. And I used to see it in the fitness kind of side of things as well, actually. Like people would be like, well, I can't wear that, or I'm not a runner because I don't have that outfit. And it's like, well, actually, you know, yeah, you could take it to the point of you want to look spangly and whatever. But really, as long as you've got a set of trainers on and a good sports bra, you can go and do whatever with your body. It's that belief system that we have inside of us that either allows us to go out or stops us. And it's the stopping ourselves and the blocks that we have that really we want to probably overcome to be able to really feel that freedom in ourselves,
Yeah.
to be ourselves.
It's the weight of expectation as well. It's kind of, you know, like you self-censoring, holding yourself back. I mean, I've always, you know, definitely in my 20s, I was very inward looking. So if I went in a room, I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to say something in a minute. You know, I wasn't truly, like you say, in the room because I
Yes,
was
yes,
too
you're
much
not
in my
there.
head.
Yes.
I wasn't really there, and it's kind of, and you know, the weight of expectation of other people telling you what you should be, society, like you say in the 90s, whatever, telling us what an attractive woman is with FHM and all the lads mags and all that kind of, you know, stuff that basically when you look back now is quite horrifying, that was normal to us. There's someone on Instagram that explains it really well called Alex Light London. She's brilliant.
Yes.
She sort of does that body positive stuff, and anyone listening, I recommend you go and check her out because she is brilliant. But also something, you know, weirdly, like mothers, it's not weird, but mothers have a huge influence over people as well. And when it comes to what you wear, lots of people in a way are still being dressed by their mother, which sounds
Yes.
silly, but it's like, it's
I know what
kind
you
of,
mean.
you know, words will come into their heads that she said maybe, you know, when they were younger, you know, things like that. You carry this weight of expectation around with you that holds you back and makes you censor yourself. And what I want to ask as well, though, is I want to move it back to clothes as well. Is I want to ask you, Kate, if you think, honestly, clothes are frivolous, because I think you have said to me in the past that you weren't interested.
I think this is a fascinating topic because actually I think I love clothes, but I think I haven't allowed myself to fully enjoy them in exactly what you have been saying, in this sense that I am only now, as I turn 40 next year, getting to a point where I'm like, actually, I do really love clothes. I do really want to have a wardrobe full of really beautiful pieces that I feel incredible in. And because I think I spent so many years in Lycra in my fitness world days, that became my uniform as well. That became all I wore. And actually, hilariously, part of the reason I wanted to shift into mindset and life coaching, confidence coaching, was that I wanted to wear different clothes. I wanted to feel like I could have more fun with
Yeah,
my clothing. I'm not even joking. Like
yeah,
part of the joy of my job now is that I don't have to just put on Lycra. I love Lycra. It's a really easy go-to. But in answer to your question, I think I used to be very worried about being seen as vain. I used to be very worried as kind of maybe not even knowing how to dress. And as an actor, ironically as well, clothes have such an impact on character and how we feel. So I know clothes can help us feel certain things. And I know very much from when the first time, I'll never forget the first time I spent a considerable amount of money on a beautiful dress, which really changed my perception on clothing, was in 2018. My marriage had just ended. So I was in this real kind of cusp of, I'm about to go through a big change in my life, and I was feeling quite lost. And I went to this designer shop. There's a designer in Australia. I was in Australia at the time. I took some time out to go and visit family over there. There's a designer in Australia called Camilla, and she has beautiful silk clothes. And texture of clothing has always been I've always been very sensitive to how clothes feel on my body. So I'm going on a wild tangent here, so I'll try and bring it back
yeah.
to the
No,
answer
I'm
to your
loving
question.
it.
But basically, we went into the shop and, you know, they were like, would you like some champagne? I was like, yes, please. This is lovely. So it's
Oh,
part of that shopping experience as well. And I don't know, I think it was like a special day or something. But anyway, these clothes were beautiful. And I tried on this dress, and I kid you not, I will never forget the moment of like doing up that zip. And like it was this beautiful kind of bodied piece with this huge flowing, floaty silk beautifulness that kind of flowed off from my bum, because I've always been a bit, a princess. I was like, I had always been self-conscious of my body as well. So, growing up, I was very conscious of my legs and my bum and worrying about how I looked in certain clothes, because that is also where attention had been drawn to my body, and that's where my insecurities were. So for many people, we all have this kind of, area perhaps or two that we're more drawn to. And a lot of the work I've had to do on myself over the years has been reframing all of that. And anyway, I bought this dress, tried the dress on, but it was like $600, which to me back in 2018, even now that's a lot of money. It was like 300 quid.
That is a lot of money.
It was a lot of money. It was an investment. And like at that time, I hadn't really ever spent a lot of money on clothes ever. And so I did a lap of the shopping centre with my mum, and I got that sweaty, I had the money, I could buy it. And I went back and bought that dress. And for me, that dress still, I have no regrets over buying that dress. It opened up this whole new avenue of where I had perhaps been denying myself. And I now understand as a mum, because, for our children, we want to make sure that they are also safe. And what is this line of allowing us to express ourselves through clothing, in sexuality, and all this kind of stuff that comes into it, which we don't really explicitly talk about as well. But for me, I feel like I'm coming into clothing from this perception of enjoyment quite late in my life. And I think part of that was my insecurities as a teenager, was the hiding that I had under my clothes, baggy clothes, felt very comfortable in gym kit, like I said, which ironically is quite tight fitting a lot of the time, but it was very much uniform. And so now there is this new permission that I have given myself with clothing to not see it as vain. I've had to do work on that. I did a whole podcast episode on my podcast about, the vanity piece around clothing that we just touched upon today. And to see it as something that you can enjoy without it, for enjoyment, for expression, for confidence. I will feel very different in myself depending on what I'm wearing. And now I make decisions in what I wear. I've always probably done this, but in a heightened level now, like depending on the environment I'm going into, depending on how I feel on that day. If I'm having a tricky day, I'll want to wear clothing in a very specific way to still feel confident. And I think there's so much in this that is a really freeing conversation to have. Because, in answer to your question, I think I did used to think clothes were a bit frivolous. And maybe I did used to think that it wasn't a good way to spend money, but I have changed my mind on that now.
I'm glad to hear it. You see the benefits. I love that pivotal style moment that you had. The dress moment.
So special.
It was more than just buying a dress. It changed perception. It made you feel different. It took you into a different mindset. I mean, it's just, it's amazing what clothes can do. And there's a few things I wanted to touch from what that story that you've just told me. With acting, like you said, we basically clothes are storytelling. You are telling people a story about who you are. You're making yourself feel different. In acting and in character, the clothes that a character wears tell you about the character. So you can take clues from someone, who's, so an example would be, I don't know if you watch Bridgerton.
Yes,
but
love it.
in the recent, love Bridgerton. So in the recent one, and I'm going to forget everyone's name. So Colin and Penelope.
Yes.
So Penelope went on this journey of, wearing garish clothes like her whole family. Everyone else in Bridgerton is in lovely soft pastels and they all look quite elegant and gorgeous. And her family, the Featheringtons, were all in like lime and acid and really bright colours, quite jarring. And, they weren't really as elegant as the others. And then she just went on this style journey where she suddenly had her hair all soft and gorgeous and she started wearing really pretty dresses. And it was a character development. And I think, that's really how we develop through our own lives in real life as well. It's character development, and you realise one day that you do deserve to look nice.
Totally.
And the vanity thing as well is interesting because I was watching Vogue the other day. There's the documentary, I think it's on Apple or Disney, I'm not sure, but it's really interesting. Vogue through the 90s. And Hillary Clinton, she did a photo shoot and she was dressed up by a designer. I think it was Donna Karan. And she got absolutely ruined for it in the press because first ladies, you can't be a serious person and enjoy clothes. The two things are not how can you be serious if you enjoy something that women like? Do you know what I mean? Something that is deemed frivolous, or I don't know how else to explain it, but just, that has changed. That was back in the 90s.
Mm,
Now we have moved on, thank goodness. And you can enjoy clothes and enjoy fashion and be unapologetically feminine
mm.
and be taken seriously. Hugely positive.
Yeah, I got my dog barking in the background. It always kicks off at the same time, doesn't it? But I like that storyline in Bridgerton in that last series was, I thought it was beautiful because, like you say, it really showed her, Penelope's self-acceptance but also her bravery and her courage. Like you're saying, like, almost like Hillary Clinton, to be different and to also say, I don't really mind what you think, but I want to wear this because this is what I want to wear. And it drew attention to them. And I think this coexistence of, you can dress in a certain way and still be a kind, empathetic, loving woman. This idea that you
Mm.
can't dress in a certain way because it changes who you are. And I just don't, that's taken me a very long time to learn, like you were saying about the Bambi thing. And I think that's what I also meant in that post of, don't underestimate the relationship that you have with your body, because what we think about ourselves links into that relationship. It links into the choices that we make. And it does then link into how we show up in the world and the choices that we make and the people that we are. And especially in identity change, whether it's through something like, whether it is becoming a mum or a job change, or, there are shifts there that we basically open ourselves out to rejection. And I think this is the other thing, is that in order to really step into that sense of not underestimating the relationship you have with your body, it's to accept that there might be some people who don't understand your choices, and that's okay. But you should absolutely, if you want to explore clothing and dress and being flamboyant or whatever, maybe demure, not demure, I don't know why that word came to mind, but sophisticated or chic or whatever word you want to choose, like whatever experience you want to go on, accepting that some people might not understand that, but it doesn't make you a bad person or wrong for wanting to make those choices in the expression that you have with your clothes.
I think that's absolutely true. And maybe the reason you said demure is because it was a huge TikTok trend.
Yes. I'm like,
This
no.
girl, she said she wanted to look demure and mindful at work, and then it just went crazy, and and then demure outfits were the thing, and mindful dressing.
And
I
sensible,
love
and
it.
this
So I
idea
think,
that as women we should hide and not be proud. And I think there's this huge thing on like sexuality, like I've touched upon before, but what is sexy and what is confidence? What is that? It's personal. It completely depends on what an individual is comfortable wearing. I think this other thing of, it's so important that you feel also safe in your clothes, and you feel not safe from a sense of you're vulnerable, safe in a sense that you're not anxious and stressed in the clothes that you wear. You can't show up with confidence. And this is another part of what I kind of meant in that post was, you can't be confident if you're also not dressing in a way that is connected to you. If I try and dress like someone else because I think they look confident, and I really like that, but the clothes make me feel really icky and uncomfortable, I'm not going to be confident. I'm going to be sweating in the back. So it's about that real play, like you are so great at, of really understanding the individual of the story of who they are and what they want in their life, to then say, okay, well, maybe you want to try and dress like that. And that's going to be completely different to how I would dress, or even how you would dress.
oh, I love that. That is so spot on, because that just, I talk about this a lot on the podcast as well. Those guides, the capsule wardrobe guides, everyone needs this, and this, and it's just this list that they've been churning out for years. And it's a pair of loafers, it's a trench coat, it's a white shirt, all these things that just I wouldn't wear because it doesn't feel like me. So all of what we're talking about here is connected. It's all about self-identity. It's about really getting that clarity on what you really like and who you are and what your belief system is. Like you say, how do you want to show up? How do you want to show up in the world? And allow yourself to treat yourself to things, to be, and don't see it too much as a treat, but it's, because it's about expressing yourself as well. Once you get that identity really clear and who you are and what you want from life and all those things, it's a journey. I mean, we evolve, all the time. So I'm changing and changing all the time. And if you listen to this podcast, when it first started, It's definitely moved on. I used to say 5 years ago, throw away clothes if they've been in your wardrobe, you haven't worn them in a year. I would never say that now. That's just one small example, but, we evolve as humans. As humans, that's what I'm really saying. And, your wardrobe should evolve with you, but also just to check in with yourself and see, like you're saying, what do you want? Instead of thinking how you should be, who actually are you? It's a huge question.
It's huge. And this is where like coaching comes into it and getting to know yourself better, which are all kind of abstract terms. But in that post as well, that we kind of has prompted this whole conversation, I was asking the question, are you dressing to be seen or are you dressing to be hidden? And this sense that we can be wearing our clothes, but hoping that no one sees us, that no one pays attention to us. That whole question that you had about imposter syndrome and not fitting in. And we go at our own pace, we evolve at our own pace. But ultimately, I have seen it over the years, and it's desperately sad. Women that live in a shell of themselves because there is such shame and guilt about their appearance. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, I'm absolute living proof of that. Like, this is why I'm so passionate in that work of helping women to reframe how they see themselves, and men, any gender, really. It doesn't matter on gender. But this sense that actually how we see ourselves impacts how we dress, that relationship with everything in our lifestyle, with how we eat, how we move, how we sleep. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It's just about what are your desired experiences of life? Like, how do you want to live? And that creative self-expression doesn't even, you don't have to label it as creative, but that self-expression to feel free, to feel at peace, or whatever it is that you want to feel when you get dressed, to then have that sense of also like, wow, this is really cool. Like, where's this going to take me today? Like, it's so much more than just the stuff we put on.
Absolutely. So it's the freedom and the permission to be yourself. And that's
Yes.
really what we're talking about today. It's a huge thing, definitely. I've loved our chat. Thank you so much, Kate, for coming on. And I just want to quickly ask you, I know you had that dress. We know the dress moment in Australia.
But
I want to see that dress. Have you got any faux pas to share?
oh,
Any fashion faux pas or successes? That was a success, the dress.
the dress was a success. I would say that the majority of my life has probably been a slight fashion faux pas. Apart from my childhood, when my mum was obviously like amazing my mum was amazing because she would make all of our clothes. So actually, my mum's outfits were beautiful. But I think, and maybe they weren't faux pas, other than maybe I was trying to be cool or trying to be fashionable. And I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like weird things like scarves or like headbands, and then like mismatched color and just lots of clashing stuff. I feel like I was always nailing it with the fitness side of things, but I think just never quite feeling fully confident to be brave when I got dressed meant that I made like weird decisions sometimes, or like would go shopping and buy things that were only in the sale. I think that was almost a fashion faux pas, was like, rather than
Mm.
buying really what I wanted, I would buy things that were on sale. So then, you kind of end up with a bit of like
That's so
hodgepodge.
interesting. God, if I
Yeah.
could,
So,
if I was a therapist, I would dig down into that. That's like you're not allowing yourself the full price things. You've just got to. You're only allowed
100%.
to sell stuff.
But that's it. And that's the whole thing with the relationship that we have in ourselves, and why it's so important. Because when you elevate your self-worth and your self-esteem and your self-confidence, then yes, you deserve to spend that money on the clothes you really want to wear. And it doesn't mean you have to buy loads of them. And this is the shift that I made with my mindset. I made this great book, read this great book years ago called L'Art de Simplicité. And it was all about like, you go and you buy the best that you can afford, but you buy that one thing rather than trying to tick all the boxes with 5 or 6 things in the sale item. And now that's how I approach things. And my wardrobe has benefited tenfold. Like, I'm now excited to wear the clothes that I have in my wardrobe. Like, that's cool. And I'm only just beginning. So I'm excited about what that means.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love that. And it's because if otherwise you've just got a wardrobe full of cheap rubbish that doesn't make you feel excited. It's much better to just stop doing that and just focus on spending a bit more money on less. It's definitely the
Totally.
way forward.
Totally. I'm worrying less about what people
Absolutely.
think of you. I've definitely been impacted by that. And I'm shifting through that now. We're not vain. We're not vain for wanting to look and feel great in our clothes.
No, no, it's just about looking after yourself and feeling good. And there's nothing wrong with that. And when you feel confident, the world opens up. So where can
100%.
people find you, Kate? Where can people find you?
Good question. I am very active on Instagram, probably spend way too much time on Instagram. So I'm just at Kate Stirling _. I also have Club Thrive, which is my membership platform to help women improve self-belief and confidence. So that's at Club Thrive _. And that's probably, I have a podcast connected to that, and you can find me just katestirling.com. There's loads. I'm kind of everywhere. Instagram is
It's all
probably
over
the
the
best
place.
place. I'm all over the place. But just do come and say hi, because I also really love, like you, Lisa, like you're so good at that, really just being open. I love connecting with people. I really love helping other people to, overcome all of these things that we kind of touched upon today, whether it's body image or self-image or confidence. Like, I really, really love to empower and motivate you to feel your best, so you go out there and kind of achieve your best and fulfill your potential, whatever that means. So do come say hi. Any questions about any of this, people are welcome to DM me, and all of that.
Yeah, so lovely listeners, please do connect and follow Kate, and I will put the links to Club Thrive and her Instagram in the show notes below. Thank you so much, Kate, for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Lisa. Imperfection all the way, everybody. I'm all about, this is a thing, right? And I think it's so important as well that we acknowledge that no one is perfect. So what we hear and we see is the curated image. Like when people see fitness videos, they see the perfect form. When we see people polished in outfits, they've been styled and coiffed, and actors and everything like that. So this is that last little reminder to not worry about the little slip-ups we make in life.
Absolutely, what a beautiful end. Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Lisa.
That was a great chat there. Thank you so much to Kate Stirling for joining me on the Style Stories podcast. I've put links to Kate's Instagram and Club Thrive in the show notes below here, so connect with her. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're really enjoying the podcast. If you are, please remember to hit the follow button so you never miss an episode, and also kindly leave me a review as well. I really do sit down and love reading through those. If you are someone who can sponsor the podcast, I'm looking for a sponsor at the moment. My email is lisa@lisagilbystyle.com, and we get around 8,500 downloads a month. It's in the top 2% of podcasts worldwide. It charts in the UK and in the US, Australia, Canada, all around the world. So it's a good option for sponsorship, and I'm looking for the right sponsors. Please, if that's you, you're listening, please drop me an email and I can bring the podcast back next year. Take care, and I'll see you next time.